Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. Before we begin the agenda itself, for those who can't read, I would like to have the members just identify themselves from my left.
I don't think my mic's on. Oh, maybe it is. There's no light. Marcus Sidmore?
Dave Kaiser.
Dick Trask.
Dan Gagnon.
Betsy Gadbois.
Doug DeRocher.
And how about the staff?
Aaron Henry, Director of Land Use and Community Services.
Shannon O'Leary, Secretary.
Good, thank you. First item is approval of minutes, and I would ask we wait until the end of the meeting. I have some additions on it, and instead of taking up the time of the public, if we could just hold that until the end. Next item is public comment about anything that's not on the agenda. Okay, not hearing any. The first item of business tonight is new business. It's an application for a certificate of appropriateness, and it's for the Historic District Commission will hold a public hearing beginning no later than after 5:02 to discuss an application to install a 10-foot octagon gazebo in the dog park at Endicott Park. And it's going to be, do we have a number for that?
22.5.
22.5, thank you. And tonight we have Mr. Sanborn here representing the town. And good evening.
Good evening.
And if you can just tell us what you intend to do.
Sure. Again, Chris Sanborn, Director of Natural Resources, representing the town of Danvers and Endicott Park in our application for a proposal to install a 10-foot octagon gazebo. It's entirely pressure treated. It has cedar shake shingles. We recognized in our recent improvements to the landscape of the dog park that we lack some shade in the small side, and we looked at a bunch of commercial structures, shade structures, and we realized that a lot of these shade structures just didn't fit the character of Endicott Park, as well as would meet some of your guidelines as well. So we thought the pressure-treated gazebo would be the best route to go in this situation. It's only 10 feet. It'll have 2 benches inside. It'll be just big enough that we can get a wheelchair in there and be able to turn around so that we're satisfying the ADA requirements as well.
Very good, thank you. And we do have a extra copy of the application if anybody in the audience wants to take it and take a look at it. And why don't we begin by any questions from members?
I have no questions.
Okay.
I have no questions. This looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have no questions. It seems like a great proposal.
And I like the idea that it's wood, pressure treated, but it's wood, and also the shingles are cedar shakes on the roof, and it looks very nice to me. Dave?
No comment?
I have nothing.
And we do have the location of it, which shows, I think it's Dean Street's on the left-hand side, and it will be closer to Dean Street than to the kids' area.
Correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Not hearing any. If anybody would like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries unanimously. And now we'll open the regular meeting. And what's the pleasure of the board?
I'd move we accept the application as presented.
I will second.
Okay, discussion on that? We should give them some tough questions.
I know,
Make them
Chris.
easy.
Make it worth your walking.
Okay, not hearing any further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. be a nice addition to the park, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you very
Oh,
much.
I do have one question.
Oh, see?
In the application,
Yes.
there's a signature of the owner, and then there's also your letter, which has a signature that I can read very nicely. The signature of the owner, I have no idea who that is.
That would be my signature as well.
Really?
I'm embarrassed to say.
I told him that.
Publicly shamed. Publicly shamed.
Okay.
I'll work on that for the next one.
The T looks the same.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's having fun.
telling me that he can't, and I can call him.
I would try that.
And one other item of business, just at the last meeting, I indicated that I thought that 115 Center Street, which had an application a few months ago for fencing, and they took our recommendation of having some picket fence in front of the structure, and then split rail fence around the other part of it. It looked really fine. So I had asked the members if I could send a letter, which I did today, on behalf of the Salem Village Historic District members and myself. I want to tell you how very nice your yard with the combination of your new picket fence in the front and split rail fencing elsewhere looks. I enjoy seeing your 1848 house and lovely yard each time I ride up the street from my home at 35 Center Street towards the highway, with best regards. And if you haven't been by there, you should. It really looks very nice.
Chairman, Brendan, who is trying to do this remotely, can't hear, so if I have him on speakerphone, can I put my phone up here?
Sure,
So that
sure.
he'll be able to hear you?
Sorry about that. This mic's not strong enough, I guess.
Okay, going into old business. The commission will now talk about the Historic District Study Commission for consideration of 367 Maple Street and 42 Summer Street. Now, the commission held a required public hearing for public input letters and comments by the audience on Monday, September 26, 2002, and then carried that over to a second public, actually the same public hearing on October 24th, 2022, at the conclusion of which the commission voted to close the public hearing. So we're not going to be taking any further comments by the public concerning the two properties, and we do thank all those who participated, somewhat aggressively at times, but time for public input has passed. And tonight, the commission members will deliberate concerning the public hearing, information by the owners and their representatives concerning their current activities and actions of other town agencies, any changes to be made to the preliminary reports concerning these properties, and the potential future action of the study committee. I note that the continual objective of the study committee has been to save these two historic houses from demolition and to attempt to make sure that there is a preservation mechanism in place to preserve them from destruction into the future. Other buildings on the properties were not the focus or purpose of our concern for protection. Let me first ask representatives of the planning department if they, at our request, had spoken again to town council to find out if a lot can be cut up so that part of it is in the historic district and part of it would not be. And the reason we asked that is that almost 50 years ago, with the establishment of the Salem Village Historic District, we have about a third of the properties, part of which is within the historic district and part of which is not within the historic district. Aaron?
So on that, I think when they were talking about a broader district, council was comfortable with a meets and bounds description that didn't necessarily encompass entire properties because we were covering such a wide swath of area. And to kind of go back off of, I think in the HDC case, it's like 150 feet off the road or something like that, and then we drew that line. So they were kind of comfortable with that, but when we turned the question to single lots, there, again, it may be legal to draw a single district smaller than an existing lot, but they were pretty uncomfortable that, they advised us that we not do that. The MHC guidance kind of does talk about single lot districts, but they're called, they're kind of referred to as single lot districts. So if you were contemplating just doing it and establishing a district for one lot, keep to its meets and bounds. They didn't, if the lot were really deep, again, they might say some, rationale like being 150 feet off a street would make some sense, but in this case, given the proposed size of 42 Summer Street, they do not recommend that we draw a smaller district than that lot size. So again, it could be technically legal and defensible, but given the guidance around MHC, they were a little uncomfortable with going even smaller than a single lot as we expect it to be recorded.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Aaron. Now, what I'd like to do is ask to hear from the representatives or owners of the two properties in question, if they could, starting with 367 Maple Street, present to the board what has happened since our last public hearing. One of the reasons we decided to have this meeting rather than try to have activity after the public hearing was we knew that there were at least 3 other agencies that were going to hear and might have bearing on a decision. So, Ms. McCann, if you would be happy to address.
I would be. Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the owners, Dr. and Mrs. Myers. Property located at 367 Maple Street. And since the last meeting, we had a meeting with the Board of Appeals this past Monday night. And at that meeting, the Board of Appeals granted the various dimensional variances that were required to divide that parcel at 367 Maple Street, such that the historic dwelling will be on its own lot. That lot has 15,066 square feet and about 92 feet of frontage on Old Maple Street. I do have that plan with me if you would like to see that. That variance, the variances, and it was a lot area, lot frontage, and setback variance was unanimously granted by the Board of Appeals. And with that decision, the board included a condition that the applicant offered, which is once the variance is finalized, the applicant will withdraw the demolition permit application as it relates to the historic structure. So that occurred on Monday night. We also, since the last meeting, have met with the Preservation Commission, and the Preservation Commission lifted the demolition delay as it relates to the rear of the dwelling structure, which is the newer constructed area that was constructed after the fire in the 1970s. So that portion can be demolished, but the demolition delay currently still applies on the historic portion of the property. And as I said, the applicant, as a condition of the variances that were granted, will withdraw the demolition permit for the historic portion of the dwelling. That meaning that anyone in the future who might wish to demolish the historic portion would have to start the demolition delay process all over again, and a new demolition delay would be placed on it. But with the variances granted, the likelihood of that is probably very low, because the 15,000 square foot lot with the house on it will be sold as a home to someone who is going to buy an antique home. So that is what occurred with regard to 367 Maple Street. And again, I have the plan with me if you'd like to see that. It is the same plan, I think, that we have discussed before. I'm happy to answer any questions. And then if you'd like me to move on to 42 Summer Street, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, but could we address them separately
Yeah.
instead of moving on to the other one?
Yes.
It's just too messy in discussions. I don't want to proceed that way.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Attorney McCann, you said that the demolition permit or delay has been lifted for the portion that will be demolished. And you know that I was at the meeting on Monday night as well, so I'm with you. I'm on the same wavelength here. However, there's still a demolition active permit in place for the historic home as we sit here right now. It's still actively in place.
That will be withdrawn once the variance documentation is issued. The variance hasn't issued, but the variance contains a condition that was put on by the Board of Appeals that we will withdraw.
Okay, and that's why it was not withdrawn with the other, as part of the other discussion. So that's why, I'm asking why the full permit wasn't just completely withdrawn at the same time. I'm wondering why it's a partial withdrawal.
Okay, so it wasn't withdrawn at the time that the Preservation Commission lifted on the rear section because we had not been to the Board of Appeals yet. We had not received our variance yet. So now we have our variance in place. We can separate the lot. We will withdraw the demolition permit as it applies completely to the entire remainder of the structure, and the Preservation Commission simply lifted the demo delay as to the 1970s portion.
Okay.
And that is a condition of the variance.
Right,
It's
so the
not
variance
something
is
that
not
the...
valid unless you
Correct.
withdraw that.
That's correct.
Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that very much.
Just one question about when the barn and garage are removed, is it the intention of the owner to put the void basically back in the same exterior mode as it is now?
I don't understand what you
The
mean.
When you
exterior
have-
wall that will be exposed, right? What's the treatment of the
Right, yeah.
exposed?
Oh, yeah, it would have the matching clapboards on the back as it
Yeah.
has now, sure. Mhm.
Very good. Other questions?
None.
Any questions from the audience? Okay. And if you could now talk about 42 Summer Street?
Sure. 42 Summer Street appeared before the planning board this week. And at that hearing, the planning board endorsed what's called an approval not required plan, which allows the separation of 42 Summer Street into two parcels. One is the lot at 42 Summer Street will be 22,065 square feet, and that's a fully conforming lot, and that on which the historic structure is located. So the historic structure is now, with the endorsement of that plan, is on its own lot. The rear portion, about 17,000 square feet in the back, is being conveyed to 44 Summer Street. So the dwelling now sits on a 22,065 square foot lot, and that plan was endorsed by the planning board on Tuesday night. And I do have a copy of that plan with me as well.
Anyone on the board need to see a copy? Dave?
Yes. Just interested in maybe in the rear section.
Summer Street currently is here.
Yep.
And we've divided the lot so that the historic dwelling is located on a 22,065 square foot lot. This is the rear portion, about 17,000, we'll go with
Yep.
40.
Good, okay.
Okay.
Yep, got it, thank you.
Okay, other questions from the board?
I might, Mr. Chairman, Attorney McCann, I think I might have misheard the number. Was it 20,065 or was it 22,065?
Oh, sorry, I may have misspoke just then. It is 20,065, sorry.
Oh,
about
okay,
that.
thank
Yes.
you, thanks.
Other questions? I'd like to know, presently, after all that's been done up to this point, what is the intention of the owner to this subdivided lot with the historic house on it?
42 Summer Street?
Yes.
Brendan can speak to that. He's,
On the phone.
he should be on the phone.
Here he is.
It's just to sell it. We haven't decided if we would restore it first or sell it. I think the plan is to potentially, put it for sale and see, if someone's interested in it, as is, or, and then, the plan is to sell it, whether it's as is or we do some type of, restoration to the outside and then sell it. That part's up in the air for the plan to sell it.
Good, thank you. Is it the intention of the owners to remove the demolition request for that property?
Brendan?
I don't know if you could hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't think we're still going through our process with CBA, so I don't think I don't think we were gonna formally withdraw it at this point, right, Nancy? I wasn't really prepared that was gonna be a question, so.
Okay, that just gives me a little pause. If they're going to sell it, that's great. If they want to do some restoration beforehand, that's great. And if their intention is to do that, I understand that there's still quite a bit of stuff to do through zoning on the rest of the property, and that might have something to do with this, but of course our intention is to make sure that the house, National Register house, is not destroyed. So.
Well, I could speak to, if the intention is to not create the district around it, and then, yeah, we would just go to the next meeting and withdraw the demo delay permit, but, if that's the part of the conversation, I guess. If you guys are gonna withdraw that district, then yeah, we'll go pull the demo permit tomorrow, the delayed demo permit out tomorrow, and then just list it for sale as is, and kind of much like the other one, someone was going to attempt to do it again, they would have to go through the process, all over again. But our plan would be to sell it to somebody who's looking to buy the home for its historical content and value. That would kind of be our plan.
Okay, other comments or questions by the board? After the meeting, I spent a teeny bit of time on the computer for both properties in which the owners are talking about trying to sell it. 42 Summer Street has national significance, and therefore, due to what the interior looks like, I think you want a broad look for people who might be interested. This is not something that would just happen locally. And the Greek Revival House on Maple Street is also a very fine house, although it's not in the same category as the National Register structure. So I'll be happy to give them to you, Ms. McCann, after the meeting. National Trust has in each of their magazines sections on historic houses, and also there are two realtor companies that deal specifically with historic structures. And I would say you would not be doing yourself a service just doing it to the local people, because both of these houses might be very interesting to somebody who lives in Michigan or Washington or something like that. So I'll give those to you afterwards. Any other questions or comments by the members? Okay, any questions from the audience? Okay, I do want to just note for the record that the Danvers Historic District Commission did send separate letters to the Zoning Board of Appeals in support of establishing the two historic dwellings as separate lots as a possible solution to preserve these two historic Danvers assets rather than tearing them down. I also want to say, and I believe it would be the board's indication as well, that I do want to thank and acknowledge the owners of both Summer Street and Maple Street dwellings for working diligently and quite difficultly with the commission and other agencies to try to preserve these two town of Danvers historic assets. So even though at times we've had some little clashes, I think we're all trying to do the right thing. So thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from the members? Okay, I'll now ask if we want to offer motions on these two structures as to what the commission will be doing.
I would offer a motion, Mr. Chairman, on 367 Maple Street. I would move that since the owners of 367 Maple Street have separated the historic Greek Revival style 1841 Putnam Leroy dwelling and lot comprising the main house and the attached L into a new and separate lot from the remainder of the property, and are withdrawing their demolition request for the main house and the attached L, and have requested that at this time the structure not be considered for individual historic district designation, the Danvers Historic District Commission will take no action with its current preliminary study report of 367 Maple Street for a single parcel historic district.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a second?
I'd second that.
Some discussion. Want to talk a little bit more about it, or maybe even read it once more?
I'd be happy to. The main action item is no action, which would resolve the current study process as no action, not moving forward to town meeting.
That would allow it to be sold unencumbered by, which is the point.
Yes, it ends the process here with this current study. Would you like me to read it again? I'd be happy to if that was, no? Okay.
So what we would be doing is basically stopping the process for making our initial study a final study and not sending it on to town meeting.
Yes.
And if in the future we were interested in doing it, we would have to begin the process all over again.
Oh, yes. That we cannot bind a future commission as no town commission can bind a future commission 100 years from now or something, but it would have to start square one, very beginning, as if it had never happened in the first place. Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this as one of the possible options. The thing that made me more copacetic with it is the fact that because of the size of the lot that's being made and the house which appears upon it, and also the zoning around that neighborhood, I would find it very unusual if someone wanted to buy the house, which now is a two resident structure, and tear it down and then have to make another structure that can't be much bigger than what's there now. Other comments?
No, I think you're right. It's a limited use space at this point, now that it's been broken off and assigned to be a separate parcel. There's no reason to proceed with any sort of designation other than an unencumbered sale.
And it's still protected by the demolition delay bylaw.
Yeah. Other comments? Would you just read it once more?
Sure, I will, Mr. Chairman. I move that since the owners of 367 Maple Street have separated the historic Greek Revival style 1841 Putnam Leroy dwelling and lot comprising of the main house and attached L into a new and separate lot from the remainder of the property, and are withdrawing their demolition request for the main house and attached L, and have requested that at this time the structure not be considered for individual historic district designation, the Danvers Historic District Commission will take no action with its current preliminary study report of 367 Maple Street for a single parcel historic district.
Okay. All right, let's call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's continue the discussion with 42 Summer Street, and we have a motion relative to that.
I'd like to move that the Danvers Historic District Commission, acting as a Historic District Study Committee, recommend that the dwelling at 42 Summer Street, a 20,065 square foot lot appearing as Lot A-1 on the A&R plan approved by the Planning Board on 11/15/2022, be created as a new single parcel historic district. This nationally significant Putnam Pickering dwelling is circa 1715, a first period structure with a major 18th century addition, which entire structure is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And the Danvers Historic District Commission further moves to send a final report regarding this dwelling along with a suggested warrant article to Danvers Town Meeting through the Danvers Select Board, requesting that it be voted to add this property to the Danvers Historic District bylaw.
And is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. Now some discussion.
I would support such a move.
So what we're talking about this is, we would take the study report, change those things to make it a final report, and then send it first through the Board of Selectmen for town meeting action to make it into a
Warrant.
one lot
Yeah.
historic district, and then incorporate that into what we as a commission now do for the 114 property Salem Village Historic District, correct? Other discussion?
Question. Can an individual owner request that their house be made into an individual historic district?
They could certainly request it, although the process would be the same as what we've done so far. In other words, that doesn't automatically mean it goes to town meeting. We have to do the
Right.
preliminary study and all the other
Right.
public hearings and stuff.
Okay. The reason for my question is I don't know if that house specifically, which is on the National Register and may garner some outside the local area interest, I don't know how much of a get it would be for someone to have it already recreated, or if they have a specific preservation interest, selling it unencumbered just to facilitate the sale. They could then request to have it as an additional, banner, badge, plaque, whatever they want to call it, on their the house's resume, pedigree. Again, we would have to go through the same process, but there's no real harm in selling it unencumbered, again, because we could have a 12-month demolition delay, and we've already laid the groundwork for a study. It wouldn't be a preliminary study, it'd be a rehash of something we've done.
There's an active demolition permit in place, just to remind
Yeah,
you
but
about
that's.
that timeline.
Yeah, but because they have not gone through the ZBA process, there hasn't been any, encumbrances on their new zoning. So that can be included as a condition, could be. The Myers are just a little further along in theirs than the Summer Street one is.
Well, 42 has gone through.
Correct.
So, yeah,
They are
have-
further along in the process, so they do have that as a condition of their new lot structure.
367, you mean?
Sorry, I think.
Maple Street, yeah.
I think I can, if I may jump in, I think the property owner said he would pull his demo permit if you would pull the proposal to create the historic district.
Right.
He also said he wants to see how the ZBA process plays out, which won't be complete until early January. But I think that the offer that he made to you as the commission tonight, or hinted at, was you pull your proposal and I'll pull my demo permit. That's what I heard. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I guess that's, yeah, I see it right now as we have a demolition request that will go into effect in May. We have, unlike the house on Maple Street, which locally and regionally is a very significant house, this is a totally different situation in which we have a nationally significant house that's already on the National Register, but it has no protection whatsoever except for a demolition delay, which has already been put on the structure, and the time is ticking. This house is, in my opinion, one of the 10 most important houses in Danvers. There's only 250 other structures like this in the nation. You can take all your mansions in Newport and throw them away because they're a dime a dozen compared to first period houses. And this house not only is a first period house, but it has abutted to it an 18th century house. And the interior is absolutely fantastic. As a person involved in preservation since 1967, I see this as a very important structure that must be protected. To decide that all of the research we've done on this with a preliminary study can just be set aside, and we'll just go back to what it was like prior to it, and maybe this owner will take away the demolition order. It doesn't mean somebody else in the future won't. And the only legislation that prevents this kind of thing is historic district. Even though this structure is on the National Register, As most of you know, the Danvers State Hospital is on the National Register, all 42 buildings there. National Register designation is a national designation, which means the house is not just significant locally, statewide, but nationally. And in 15 years ago, 10 years ago, the National Register designation of the Danvers State Hospital was simply shoved aside, and 41 of the 42 buildings were torn down. I don't want to see another absolutely historic structure, nationally significant, like the Lindens or Oak Knoll, the beautiful Greek Revival mansion that was lived in by John Greenleaf Whittier for 17 years, is another thing that happens to our town. When we got involved in this at first, after the commission had a number of meetings concerning the significance and whether or not we wanted to go to historic district possibilities, we looked at all of the other alternatives, and our mind at that time was to make sure we continue to protect the most important things that make Danvers the unique place that it is. If we continue to lose houses as we're doing now, we're going to lose 6 historic houses in the block between Hobart Street, Maple Street, and what's it called, North Putnam Street in the next 6 months. Those will never come back. And that includes the second oldest church in Danvers from the 1870s, a house that was owned by a major who was a white man who was in charge of a black regiment. If you've ever seen Glory, it's that story. Beautiful, nice Greek Revival mansion, and a couple other buildings, including what was the drill shed for Company K, Danvers's militia, in 1898, that marched from that location to serve in the Spanish-American War. As someone who's lived in Danvers all my life, loves the community, loves the built environment as well as the people, I don't want to continue to see, while I'm alive, so many of our historic structures being torn down when they have other possible uses. And for those reasons, I guess I'm very, I understand a little bit what the applicant is saying, but I don't want to chance it on this type of building that could never be replaced again. It's an architectural gem, and it has a absolutely fantastic history to it. And if we lost that because of our inaction, I could never live with something like that. So I think it's important for us, and it could be the town meeting voted down saving the railroad station, and we need a 2/3 vote when we go to town meeting. And but we can't stand idly by when something like this is happening and when we can do something about it. So I would be absolutely in favor of doing this, and I hope the other members feel the same way. Other comments? Any questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Gail Eaton, I live at 40 Summer Street. I'm just still not confused, but just wanted like clarification. When this particular building was sold, isn't there any knowledge about what, what the structure represents or anything? Meaning, like, when this was bought, there was no knowledge that this was a historical building, and I'm just wondering if it gets sold again, like we were just, what was being discussed, what gets disclosed about that? Or, I don't know, maybe Brendan can answer if he knew nothing about this house. It seemed that way. And then going forward,
Okay, yes, please.
briefly. Yeah, so I think, so when this went on for sale, it was a, cash close in 5 days scenario. I mean, it was out, it could have been out there for a few days longer, and we came across it, and there was, 2 or 3 days left to put a bid in. So we were aware it was old, for sure, just obviously by looking at it, and, you get a copy of the public records, thing when you get it, but we weren't aware of the whole process and kind of everything involved with how old it was, the delay demo, et cetera, and kind of the insight that Dick's provided on the history of the house at all. And so to answer your question, is there a way to prevent that going forward? I'm not sure there, to speak honestly, I'm not sure there is. I mean, I think from our perspective, when we sell it, we're going to do exactly what Dick just suggested, is take those references that he gave us and open it up to a bigger pool of people, and hope that we cast the net and get the right person. But I would say that, again, I think I heard briefly, just we are willing to accept the condition that we would withdraw the demo permit. I think in both of these house cases, neither of the demo permits have been withdrawn. So we hope that ours would be the same as the prior one in terms of the way it's voted, and allow us to, go withdraw it after.
Okay, thank you. No, when somebody wants to buy a house, unless they want to do some research on their own, people don't know. The difference, however, is in the Salem Village Historic District, by vote of the membership early on, 1974 or so forth, we requested and got a budget from the town to be able to put on each deed of the 114 properties within the historic district that this is within the Salem Village Historic District. So anyone who is buying a house within the district knows right away that it's in a historic district which has certain requirements, and that although we do have a number of houses that wouldn't be considered real old or necessarily historic because of its architecture, they also have this deed notation, which we think is a good idea. The more people, and quite a month, maybe 2 months don't go by when I don't have a realtor calling me and saying, we're gonna be selling this house, and the good realtors will say, can you give me as much information as possible on it? Is it historic or other interesting features in it? And we love it when realtors do that, because we can spotlight that this is either a real good house or it's kind of a dog. And but no, as the applicant indicated, there wasn't anything that said that, wow, this is a national significant structure. So thank you for your question.
and just wondering, since the lot's going to be cut down quite a bit, that changes, I think, the appeal in some respects of somebody buying that house now, because it won't have a lot of land. But, would you say from your experience that that's not necessarily important to somebody that might be interested in this type of house?
I would believe that would be the case. If you look at a historic house in Marblehead,
Right,
they're on absolute postage stamps there.
right.
But if you're one of those crazy people who are really into restoring a house and loving history, location is important, but it's not the most important factor.
Do you think it's out there a little bit now just because of your research and the people that you had consulted about it?
It certainly is locally. You know, Essex County may be part of Massachusetts. If you remember, the letters that we got from people included a realtor who had sold the house back in the 1980s, who said this was a fantastic house, please don't do anything to it. And we had people from the Pickering birthplace, as well as an architect, I don't know where he found out about it, from New Jersey, who wrote and said that as a first period house, this house can't be taken down.
Okay.
So I think that if advertising both for this house and the real neat Greek Revival house were done by a realtor who was really wanted to display the significance and the neat things about the house, there's an audience out there. And since you only have one chance in 250 for a structure that comes about every once in a while as a first period house, there are a number of people who would be interested.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Thank you for your question. Any other comments or questions from the members? Would you mind reading the motion once more?
Sure. I move that the Danvers Historic District Commission, acting as a Historic District Study Committee, recommend that the dwelling at 42 Summer Street, a 20,065 square foot lot appearing as Lot A-1 on the A&R plan approved by the Planning Board on 11/15/2022, be created as a new single parcel historic district. This nationally significant Putnam Pickering dwelling is a circa 1715 first period structure with a major 18th century addition, which its entire structure is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Danvers Historic District Commission further moves to send a final report regarding this dwelling along with a suggested warrant article to Danvers Town Meeting through the Danvers Select Board, requesting that it be voted to add this property to the Danvers Historic District bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion which was seconded, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Just one other little piece of business regarding this. Can I have a member or members willing? I know Dan has already started looking into what changes have to be made from our preliminary survey to a final report. So, are you willing to?
Yes, I can
that?
finish out the final report changes and really just the only details that were remaining were cleared up prior to the meeting with the assessor's office in terms of map parcel number. Since the lot is split, does it keep the number? Does it get a new number? We have to cite the number. And we think that we've resolved that now.
Okay. Any other member interested? I'll help you. Or
Yeah, I can certainly help with any edits that you might
Okay.
need.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
Well, even though we had some bad times together, I am pleased that we were able to come to what I hope will be a final and good resolution, not only to the owners, but also to the town of Danvers. And I thank you for your patience, and if there's anything else this commission can do to assist in finding a right person for the two structures, please let us know. Yeah, there's.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, now we can go back to the agenda item for approving of minutes. And thank you, everyone. The October 13th minutes, I had a couple possible additions and corrections to it. I don't know if the rest of you have went through it or not. I'll tell you, I haven't gotten to the big one, the September one yet, and I would ask that maybe we wait until the next meeting to go through that, because our planning assistant spent a lot of time trying to put that together, and it's multi-pages, and I
Those are
would
the
like
20
some.
The 26th, September 26th.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
trying to find them, but I don't.
And do you have a copy of the October 13th?
Did you make corrections on yours?
I
or-
made them, if you can read them, that,
I bet I can.
okay, okay. Let me just go through them, just so
here they
that
are. I've got them.
everyone is, on the application for 10 Ingersoll, I believe the date is, for that structure is 1998, not 1988. And when the commission was asking questions, to include that the pediment was going to be removed from the front door. And the commission does not have any issue with their use in this instance. I put particular instance. I'm always scared to death about precedents. And that there was no public comments. Marcus motioned to close, and it was seconded to close the public hearing. And then there was a reference to the application. I just put in the application number 22-3. And two other very minor items. And I'll give this to you, and when you can't read it, you can talk to me.
His handwriting's very small.
Does anyone else have any changes to the October 13th? Are you feeling bad that you haven't been doing this
I
for a
know,
while?
Dave.
Not really,
Not really,
especially
yeah.
that September one. It
Yeah,
sounds like a real.
I'm still working on the other one.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the October 13th minutes.
The agenda.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
With corrections, we should say.
With corrections, I'm sorry, yes. Okay.
See, that
Any other business before the commission? Yeah.
Just if you can instruct us what you want to do vis-a-vis December's meeting.
Okay.
We were proposing it the 19th instead of the 26th, but at this time, we're not sure that we need it, but
Okay, first the November 28th meeting, which I held in abeyance with the horrific thought that we might have to have another meeting, and we don't. So just
We can,
let you know that I will let the library know so they don't have to start setting up that we will not be meeting on November 28th.
okay.
As to December, let's see, it's November, it's almost it's mid-November now.
the only reason I
Could we
wanted
have
to
a-
ask was in case we get an application.
Yeah,
But we probably have, what, 3 more weeks where they could get it to us?
They have to get it to us by October, or by next week, or by the 30th.
So unlikely that someone's gonna have an application sprung on us in the next 4 business days.
maybe we could have a motion not to have a meeting in December?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. You got a second on that one.
Marcus, seconded.
12 seconds? Okay, all those in favor of not having a meeting in December, unless
Unless
an
an-
emergency so requires? Say aye.
Well, wait,
Aye.
wait, before we vote, if we have some sort of procedural need for our submission to the select board for our final report, would us voting not to have a meeting in December affect that at all?
No.
Okay, then
If we have to call a
I,
meeting, we can call a meeting in
okay,
48 hours.
then I'm also an I.
Okay,
Okay.
carries unanimously.
I do have procedural questions, Aaron, for you too, just so that we're clear on that. About when do we need to submit the final report to the select board to make sure that, Dan may already know the
As
answer
soon
to
as
this question, but
possible.
I'm gonna ask it anyway.
We have been talking about a fall town meeting that, for a number of reasons, obviously, did not materialize. So I don't know what the thinking is right now for a spring town meeting. I'm told that there may need to be a spring town meeting. They'd be looking at probably February-ish. So my guess is if.
That spring?
It is.
That's what they call it.
It's
Yeah.
the beginning of
It's not really
the
spring.
I'll make a
beginning of
motion
the
on
fall.
We'll go with it. So my guess is, and given your actions tonight, I assume you have wrapped up your paperwork early December. They will be aware of your actions. You know, I don't know officially what their meeting calendar is. I'm December 7th or something, the first.
So we would wanna be on that agenda for the
You
select board?
don't need to be on the agenda, I'm just saying that we will, that's the earliest they will probably be officially notified of what happened here tonight.
Okay,
And then the schedule will be the schedule. I'll connect with the manager's office to figure out if they are indeed anticipating a spring town meeting. We'll kind of have to work backwards from there to figure out the various hearing dates. I would anticipate, usually the select board has a preliminary warrant review meeting. Then they later on will have an official hearing where they take a position on the articles. And then finance committee does the same where they take a position. So I would anticipate 2 meetings of substance for the HDC to have representation. You will need somebody to speak for you at the board and the finance committee.
okay.
But I don't know when the dates will be at this point, so.
And submission of our final report at this point can come at any time.
Right, and again, I assume you guys will work Dan's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
essentially,
and I can pass
that'll
it
happen.
Yes.
down. I can pass a couple so you can pass it down. I've basically finished with it, and this is not the whole report. This is just the procedure parts that something changed on that page. So it's only like 6 pages.
Because of the
Um,
lot.
Yeah, because just now it's a different size lot. So we
Right.
had to, and I put in the little
I have-
part of it, you have to do a narrative of your process. Well, I added the past 3 meetings to the narrative. It's really tiny changes. It was
Yeah.
very small. It's just to bring it up to date, and I made clear, I did change the picture of the lot. That is their A&R plan now. It's the picture of the lot. Because it, changed in size, but there's nothing substantive, none of the history sections changed, just those pages of procedure. I would say if you get a chance to check it out and you have any suggestions, just email me. But otherwise, I think we're like 99% done with it. I'll do another read through and,
Email. If you have a comment, please just send it to Dan individually.
Yes.
okay, yeah.
Do not
Assume all communication will be deposed.
correct. And I was also gonna just counsel, I understand, if you're that close to being done, don't drag other members into this at this point. I don't wanna give any sort of procedural foothold for a procedural issue.
Got it.
I
Yes.
think you're that close to being done. If there's anything of note, let Dan know individually and then be done with it. And when Dan's done with it, we will pass it forward.
Okay,
Okay.
duly noted.
Okay, and one other piece of old business. A couple of months ago, I did send a letter to Dan Bennett and the town manager about the deplorable conditions of the Parsonage Archaeological Site with some recommendations. And I believe that Aaron said that they noted it and hopefully some changes will be made. Also, this is one example, as is perhaps the train station that was mentioned by me tonight, of why hopefully town meeting will in May reconsider or consider, what's it called? CPA, which would help the historic community, the conservation community, the recreation community in many ways, in which we just don't have the wherewithal to save or assist some of the historic buildings. Yeah.
The other piece of land use work that relates to historic is a zoning bylaw. We had talked about an adaptive reuse bylaw. There still remains strong interest from the planning board in that. I don't know that planning board process, because zoning bylaws have a slightly different adoption and amendment process than a general bylaw, such as the establishment of a historic district. So I'm not positive we can do that this spring, but unless you tell me different, I'm going to move that forward at the next, which is probably in the fall. I would put that forward for a fall town meeting.
Yeah, I think that should be pursued, and as you know, from the last public hearing we had, I forget what board it was with, Elizabeth Harris was quite interested in it. On the horizon, the other Pickering Associated House in Danvers, which is on Conant Street, I think it's 180, first period house that Pickering also lived in for a period of time, and they...
By Cherry Hill.
Yes, yeah, and they saved for the town the huge barn that was associated with the house, which was also saved and moved to another location on Conant Street, just at the Beverly border, where the Alzheimer's, it's not, I guess it's a nursing home with an Alzheimer's segment, is presently, and they saved that barn, which is humongous. And her husband recently died, and she's now going to be putting the house up. And, you know, we could get another developer coming in and wanting to knock that down, as well as the two barns that are there. And this bylaw seemed to be a good tool for preservation.
Generally, May's an option, like procedurally, May could work. It's just generally the town manager likes to keep May kind of clean and mean oriented towards the budget and associated funding articles. But that could go forward in May as well, but I gotta get her kind of some feedback from that office as to what they want to do. But for the most part, that was ready to go, and just got held up last spring for other reasons.
Okay, and finally, I do want to thank the planning staff for your work on this.
You sat through all of this with us.
Yeah, and also the members, particularly Dan and Becky. First time in my life I was ever compared to Adolf Hitler, so I thought that was interesting. And poor Dave thinks this is the way all of these meetings go. And I'm just very pleased with the members and their comments, and how we've tried to do the right thing for Danvers and preservation. So with that, happy Thanksgiving. Oh, Dave, yeah.
I might have missed something. Has there been any movement on the Ingersoll Tavern
Oh,
issue?
thanks, Dave. Yeah. Wondering.
No. The health department has had a couple of unsuccessful outreaches to Mr. Thorin. I figure, and I apologize, our bandwidth has been limited of late, given some staffing issues. I figure once the dust settles on this, that'll free up some ability, and we will head back to that property. But again, it has not been ignored while you have been doing your historic district work. We have been trying to reach Mr. Thorne through the Board of Health process, and that has been unsuccessful, but we'll start again shortly.
Is the Board of Health upset about who approached us originally about the barn, the rear barn disintegrating? Was that the fire department when we first really started talking about this in earnest?
But, and again, I should say, I didn't mean to leave them out. The building office, the building commissioner is part of that conversation as well.
I think it had originated from like a neighbor complaint, and the fire department had visited the site. Am I right, Dave? You would remember.
Yeah.
And that they were concerned about safety.
Yep.
And then it went
I
to
mean,
the next level.
The receivership process is to be, basically at this point, the Board of Health has established that there's multiple issues with the structure such that it's really not habitable, and when it dips below a certain threshold, the town can pursue receivership to basically find somebody else to, the courts assign ownership to another party who will provide the structure with the care it needs to get back into housing code shape. So we've kind of rattled his cage with that. That's the process that we would be going down. It would have to respect the historic districts piece.
He had been asked to attend a meeting, I think the last that I heard, and did he ever come to the meeting?
No.
No.
You know, I hate to be a curmudgeon on this, but
No, you don't.
what you've said, we've heard about the last 2 years, and every time I go by there, I see the hole in the roof and go, why? What's going on here? And that house is just gonna fall apart, and then we say, well, we tried, but I don't think we've tried hard enough. This is another significant structure, and it needs attention, and you just said, it has dipped below that threshold. So can't they do something? It seems like it's in the health department's hands, Board of Health, and it just seems like, someone's gotta put some pressure on it.
Yep, we will start that process more seriously. Again, like I said, that we have started the receivership process. The health department is down 2 full-time people right now, and there's still a bit of COVID-y things going on, so it's been hard to get full undivided attention on some of these issues, but we will get that done. We'll have real progress for you in January.
One last question. It seems like, way back when you said that, and I'm just, this is referring to the hole in the roof. Is there some method that we could have somebody go up there and fix that hole? Because, we've had,
We'd have to go through receivership.
got to go through receivership. You just can't just unilaterally say, we got to fix that hole.
Yeah, we'd be trespassing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
private property, we can't
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Now, it's not an open hole right now.
I mean, it
there is a-
essentially is, that
fairly
tarp is
Well,
cloth.
There was a tarp over it.
It's
you
a
know,
The
cloth
tarp is
tarp.
sagged and it's
Yeah.
definitely leaking.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
cloth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just as a point of information, yesterday I had a novelist from out of state visit the archives who's writing a book using the Ingersoll Tavern as the central point and the Ingersoll family during the witchcraft. And she was interested in, I've probably received 3 or 4 emails from people
Wondering
out of
about it.
this area wondering about it and asking about
I
it.
also have from
Yeah.
residents asking me about it, yeah.
In my walking tours, there's,
Yeah.
you can imagine, a lot
Yeah.
of comments about
Yeah, it just,
that
it's a,
house.
it's a
Because
sin.
it's a building that we can't lose.
Oh, and we're losing it though.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
And to Dave's point about the roof, there are other historic districts that have, in really limited cases, the idea of like,
Neglect.
yeah, Demolition demolition by by neglect, neglect. in which case, in only extremely limited situations, basically just like roofs, chimney, and like the main beam of the house, that the town could require you to fix. This is not like the house. This is just like, if the building inspector determines it's about to fall in, only such a step could be taken. In this case, we don't have that. But it would seem like it's approaching the threshold of that.
Kind of do, it has fallen in, thus the tarp.
Yeah.
And to do that, you would need to add language to the historic district bylaw. There are plenty of places in Massachusetts that do that. Danvers just isn't one, and it has the procedural safeguards of you need the professional opinion, or all the ones I ever saw. You need the professional opinion of the building inspector. This can't just be like, you want some guy to fix his gutters.
Yep.
It has to be like, the professional
Right.
opinion is the structure will collapse unless. So it would be in really limited, because it sounds like a big, powerful tool, but it's only in limited situations, because, yeah, otherwise you'd want that to be really reined in.
Do we have language in our bylaws regarding neglect?
No.
How come?
Okay, anybody else? Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Nice to be back.
Again.
Okay.
Stay have you back, yeah.
Thank you.
I wanted you back a few months ago, though.